Networking, building connections in your 20s can be difficult, whether that's because you're joining college for the first time, joining the workforce for the first time, or are uncomfortable in social settings. Networking is a skill that can be used to meet and greet people, find mentors, and much more. It can also pay off in huge ways through travel, meeting friends, getting promotions, working with people in a better way, and much, much more. Hi, my name is Will, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to network in your 20s, giving you guys 10 tips of things that I've learned throughout my life and how networking has helped me a ton. Now, before we get started there, I do want to talk about what I mean by networking. You often hear network is your net worth, that networking has to be super transactional, and that if you go to a social event and just go find the CEO, you'll instantly get a promotion and all of that. Slow down. That is just not at all what this video is about. What I want this video to be about and focused around is coming off of the last video that I made, which is detailing my career journey and how networking should be viewed as a way to make genuine connections with people, whether that's new friends, new colleagues, mentors, other college students that you may interact with. Networking can be a tool to foster and create genuine relationships with people, which of course could result in stuff down the line, but the ideal situation here is to just be a good person, meet people, and have fun while doing it. I also want to help you guys overcome any social anxiety that you may experience, because going to work events or social events or friend events can be difficult and challenging for some people. I know myself have not always been as outgoing as I am today. There were many times where when I was younger, I was shy, I didn't want to go talk to people, the last thing I want to do. To this day, I would still consider myself an introverted extrovert, where I'm not really the type of person that wants to go to a social event, but once I'm there, I can get super into it and have a great time. So let's go ahead and talk about how networking has helped me throughout my life with a quick story time, and then I will go into the 10 things that you can do in your 20s to network the best you can. To network the best you can. All right, so here's a couple situations where networking has helped me a lot. When I was really young, I was 14 to 16, I was in the Pokemon trading card game, which if you don't know, you can play the professional Pokemon trading card game and travel the world and meet a ton of new players and play it like any regular sport that you would play, except with Pokemon cards. Now, when I joined the Pokemon trading card game, I met a ton of people, and I would meet these people and we would play and we would build decks and we would try and get better at the Pokemon trading card game together, but ultimately, I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't win tournaments, I couldn't be the very best like no one ever was, and it took me a while to realize that a lot of the people that get really good at the Pokemon trading card game are friends with the people that are the best at the Pokemon trading card game. And so at first I was like, well, this is great. I found this realization that I can try and, get better by knowing people, but how do you actually get to know people? And so what I started doing is, when there were people in my local area who were the best of the best at the Pokemon trading card game, I just did my best to go out to them and introduce myself, talk to them, chat with them, ask them, hey, how'd you get good at this? What's your time in the game, etc. And just get to know them and ask them questions about themselves. And through consistently seeing them at events, saying hi with a smile, saying it's nice to meet you, handshaking was super common in the Pokemon trading card game at the time, all of a sudden I started to become better and better friends with these people. And over time, I got a few friends that were extremely good at the Pokemon trading card game. And once I got into those circles, I then myself started to become better at the Pokemon trading card game. And through networking, which there's interviews on YouTube of me talking about this and how I was able to do it at such a young age, all of a sudden I went from one of the worst Pokemon trading card game players in the game to ranking 11th in North America in just a couple years over the course of my Pokemon trading card game career, which is all great, and that's cool about doing that in a social setting for competing in Pokemon. But what about in work? When I first came to an internship where I was working in corporate finance, I was extremely nervous about going into social interactions with adults, frankly, because here I was some 19, 20-year-old kid, and there's a bunch of people around me that are older than me. What do I say? What do I go talk to them about? What am I supposed to discuss with them? And I had a senior manager and a few mentors who I was like, I don't know what to do when it comes to networking. How can you help me? And they recommended me a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that book changed my outlook on social settings and how to interact with people, and taught me a lot about communicating to people and getting genuine relationships with those people. And so that book was incredible. But, some of the mentors that I had in my life that pushed me to go, be vulnerable and talk to people in social settings, just go up and say, hi, my name is Will, and then introduce myself and ask them questions about what they do, and then keep asking questions about what they do, and just learning. I almost forced myself to become, to like social events, because I did it so often and was able to learn and grow from each experience that I did with it. So those things were some of the pivotal moments in my life where networking was really impactful, both becoming a lot better at the Pokemon trading card game through meeting people who could help me get better just by creating genuine relationships with those people. And the other side on the workplace, when you meet a ton of people, it's the same concept. You can ask those people about their jobs. When you run into challenges, you can go reach out to those people that you met at social events and say, hey, it was really great talking to you this time. Do you want to grab coffee? I have some stuff I want to discuss with you, other stuff like that. And so those are two situations where networking has really changed my life. The other thing too is networking, as a term, is often correlated with like the corporate world or business or stuff like that. But that doesn't have to be the case. In fact, you can apply networking to friendships and connections. If you meet a friend and that friend has a friend, and you start to get really genuine connection with that person, you start talking to them, you ask them about themselves, you never know where connections that you make at events or with friends can kind of lead. And networking, in a sense, has allowed me to travel the world to all sorts of places where people from other countries have allowed me to come and stay with them and explore their country and toured me around, all because I met a friend of a friend of a friend who then I got a genuine connection with, and an opportunity presented itself. So networking can be super, super powerful and open a lot of great opportunities for everyone. Now, let's go ahead and hop into the 10 tips that I would give to someone in their 20s that is getting ready to start networking. So a lot of these things are kind of a mix of how to win friends and influence people, plus a few other ones that I think can be super helpful to people in their 20s. And with that, we're going to go ahead and kick it off with number one. So number one, as I've mentioned before, is to be genuinely interested in people and refrain from impressing and following, basically talking about yourself all the time. When you go into a networking situation and when you're trying to meet someone for the first time, humans have this innate ability to want to talk about themselves. And in a lot of ways, I'm talking to a camera because it's fun. I get to talk about my experiences and all this stuff. When you're at a social event, a great way to go meet someone is to say, hi, my name is Will. What's your name? And then it's like, okay, well, where are you from? And you can lead that conversation in a bunch of different ways. If they say where they're from and they say New York City, you can say, oh, are you from there? Were you working there, etc. And you can just ask them a bunch of questions about themselves. And usually they will ask questions about you. And then all of a sudden you have this conversation. I'm not going to get too specific on like networking strategies and all of that, but a great way to have people like you and then want to connect with you more often is if you give them a platform to talk about themselves. And it's really important that you show genuine interest in what they're talking about. The whole goal of networking is not to like just go to someone and be like, wow, I'm going to get something out of this person, so let me just ask them 100 questions. That's not what I'm trying to say. If you really want to go meet people and get value out of connecting with other people in different situations, then put yourself out there and learn about people. Have a genuine interest. Follow up with that person and say, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you about XYZ thing on LinkedIn or social media or whatever connection thing you may use. And so yeah, be genuinely interested in the people that you go and meet, talk to, and have experiences with. The next one is going to be remember people's names. Now, for me, this has always come easily, so I don't have a ton of advice on how to be an expert at remembering people's names. I can recall memories of being in summer camp where, a camp counselor would say, here's your 20 people in your summer camp. There's got to be someone here that can memorize all 20 names. And I was that kid that could memorize all 20 names. I don't know how I got that skill. I just did, and I got really lucky with it. But the reason that I call out why you should remember people's names is because it makes people a lot more like, you just feel better when someone remembers your name. There's all those awkward interactions where you see someone that you met at some event and then they're like, hey, how's it going? And it's like, well, what's my name? You don't remember, and it's awkward. And if they don't say, hey, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name, it's just an awkward interaction. And if you remember people's names, imagine going to a social event, you meet someone, you ask them for their name, you remember it, and then all of a sudden, a week later, you see that same person, you're like, hey, John, it was so good to see you again, or you're talking to them and you're using it in the conversation. I guarantee you that person is gonna be like, wow, this person remembered my name, was actually listening to what I was saying, and is genuinely interested in the conversation that we had. And who knows, that can lead to a friendship, it can lead to a colleague at some point in the future, you never know. But remembering people's names is extremely important. And I would add a tidbit here is when people have names that are difficult to pronounce, I personally really like making sure I understood the name that they said. And if it's a little bit more complicated and I didn't get it the first time, I'll be like, hey, how do you say your name again? I want to make sure I'm getting it right. And I think people appreciate that a lot. It goes a long way, especially if you not only can pronounce it correctly, but also remember to pronounce it correctly in the future. So number 3 is to provide value. Now this one is going a little bit further into like relationship building, and I think is mainly applicable to like friendships and to interacting with senior management or other people that are, a little bit higher up in the environments that you may be in. But providing value can come in a lot of forms. If it's a friendship that you're after, and let's say you're in a conversation and they're like, oh, I went to, this state, or I want to go to this state, and you just traveled to that state, or, you have some expertise in a field that people are interested in, offer to give them your itinerary, offer to talk to them about that thing, or offer to get better, or to help them get better at XYZ thing that you're suggesting. And so in Pokemon, I met a ton of people in the local player base that would come up to me and they would, ask me these questions about Pokemon, and then I would just say, hey, well, I'm happy to, teach you these things and talk to you about this. And then we would sit down, we would have a great chat, and then by me providing value to them, all of a sudden these people would be super excited to see me in the future, because now we have a connection, I helped them with something, and then that connection grew because I was willing to take the time and provide value to someone else. And especially with leadership too, sometimes a great way to get connection with people that are in the workplace is to offer support and provide value. Say you have a company meeting that's going on, and they're looking for volunteers on how people can help run presentations or do stuff like that. They need a speaker. Well, if you raise your hand and volunteer, I guarantee you that you providing value in that way is going to result in some sort of connection with the people around you, because people like it when people volunteer and provide value to them, and that's a great way to kind of segue into getting to know that person better and trying to understand their needs by just providing value. So then the next one that we're going to go is listen, and listen actively. Networking doesn't work if you go to a social event, introduce yourself, say, oh, where are you from, and then instantly just tune out. One, because by the time they finish their answer, you kind of need a follow-up to keep the conversation going. And so if you aren't listening, then your conversation is going to go and get derailed because you're not going to say the right thing to kind of follow up the conversation and keep it moving. The next time you see that person, if you don't remember what you're talking about and they say, hey, did you ever end up going to, whatever state that you were talking about going to? And you're like, oh, I don't remember saying that. That's kind of awkward. So it's really important that you listen, and listen actively. Same thing with the pronunciation of names, remembering people's names. You want to make sure that when you go and you meet these people and create connections with people, that you remember the things that you talked about. So the next time you run into them, instead of it being like, oh, hey Jane, how's it going? And then there's no follow-up because you don't remember anything. You have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Oh, how was that goal that you were working on? How is work? I remember the last time we talked, you were doing XYZ thing and it might have been semi-stressful. Make sure you listen, and listen actively. The other thing here too, if you want to get really specific about this, is you can take notes if you have a hard time remembering. So a challenge for yourself is the next time that you go to a social event or you're trying to really create meaningful connections, kind of do like a little bit of a debrief after the event. Go take a notepad or open up your laptop and go on a notepad app and write down the stuff that you remember about the people that you talked to. See if there were people that you could see going a bit further as friends or as colleagues or etc. And now you have notes that the next time you interact with them, you have some information to go off of, so that the next time you're not just caught off guard by whatever situation that you have. It'll help you remember the things that you talk to people about, and it's a great way to create even better connections through networking. So the next one that I'm going to do is something that I've experienced a few times in my life, and that is to find social butterflies. And when I say social butterflies, I mean sometimes there are just those people that are just experts at connections, hosting events, getting people around, building community, all of that stuff. And for me, there's a key story that comes up when I moved to New York City for my internship. I met another intern who was just brilliant at this. He could make people feel welcomed. He could, create events for tons of interns to come and join and do, crazy food crawls in Chinatown and get people around and rally people, which was phenomenal. And in many ways, I myself probably would not have put myself into social activities if I hadn't have met this guy, because every weekend he had some idea to, get us out and about and do stuff. And through him, I met a ton of people where I could apply some of the other tips that I've talked about in this video to go meet more friends and meet more connections, both in the work way and in just a friendship way. And so this tip is like, find the people that are kind of, if you're a bit more introverted, find the people that are opposite of you, find the people that are extroverts that you can connect with, and say yes to the things that they invite you to, because those people are very difficult to find. And it's really, really great when you get a ton of exposure to social settings, and that's a great way to overcome being uncomfortable in social settings if you meet people that can help you, develop those habits to get more comfortable in social settings. So find your social butterflies. Shout out to the guy that I met in New York. Great. I had a ton of great experiences because of him, and met a ton of great people. Now, the next thing is, I'm going to say be vulnerable and ready to learn. We're all humans, and sometimes you're not going to know everything about everything there is to know. This could be talking to someone with a different major than you, and a great way to kind of learn more about them and what they're interested in is to just ask questions about whatever it is they do. If this is a work thing, be really curious about what type of stuff they do for work. If it's about coding and you don't know anything about coding, ask them some stuff about coding. Get ready to learn. Instead of kind of going into this conversation where it's like, oh, you're a coder, I know everything about coding. You probably don't. Or, if you're talking to someone from a different industry, don't be afraid to just ask a silly question. And you could even preface it by being like, hey, I don't know everything about this industry, but I really want to learn. This is, something I don't understand. Can you explain it to me? And this works really well when you're talking to, if you're really trying to get comfortable in social settings. A great way to just go get comfortable in social settings is to just accept that you might be the dumbest person in the room, go talk to everyone and just ask a bunch of questions and be willing to look stupid. And if you're willing to look stupid, then it's totally cool, because now you've trained and met all these people. Who cares what they thought about you, because no one's going to remember it after the fact. And then you just get a ton of experience and exposure meeting new people. And who knows, some of the people that you were willing to be vulnerable with and ask questions that they might not hear very often because people aren't actively interested in the things that they have to say, could result in them being like, hey, that kid was really, really insightful. And they provide a bunch of value by asking me all these questions, and I really liked talking to them. So that's something that you could do, and that's definitely something I did when I was an intern, because I accepted I didn't know anything about the thing I was doing and wanted to try and soak up as much knowledge as I could about the topic. So that is kind of the point there, is be vulnerable and remember that everyone is a human like you, and so people value social connection and being able to communicate with each other. So don't be afraid, no matter who you're talking to, remember that everyone's a human, be nice to them, and create genuine connections with those people. Now the next one, I've sprinkled it as a theme throughout some of these tips, but the next one is going to be go to social events, both work and non-work events. I meet a lot of people who are my age at work who don't go to social events at work. And there's a lot of reasons for this. First could be, hey, I work 9 to 5. I don't want to do anything outside of those hours. And that's acceptable, right? Some people really over-index on the work-life balance, and they don't want to create relationships with the people that they meet at work. Totally acceptable. But there's a lot of value to go to those things. Or, this could be expanded to outside of the work environment, where it could be, your college is hosting an event, and it may be kind of lame to go to the college event, but who knows? You could go and have a great time and meet people. And another thing with work is sometimes they're like happy hours and there's alcohol involved, which personally I don't drink, but I still go to happy hours and have a great time talking to people, meeting new people. I've had job offers come in because I've gone to happy hours and created relationships with all sorts of people. And genuinely, I come away from it having a great time. I meet a bunch of people, get my social connection for the week, and then I go about on my day and can turn some of the people that I meet at these functions into friends and colleagues. And so go to social events is a great way to meet people and get yourself out of your shell to then have more connections for stuff in the future. The other thing too, and I'll kind of add this as another tidbit, is when you go to a social event, well, what if you get stuck talking to someone, right? You go introduce yourself and then you're kind of like, all right, well, I've been talking to this person for 5 minutes and I'm not really interested in what they're saying, and I don't really see much value in kind of continuing this conversation, or the conversation runs dry and it's a little bit stale. A really great way to get out of that, and this was advice that was given to me from a mentor of mine, was, who else do you know at this party? Or, hey, I had a great time talking to you, I'm gonna get another drink, but who do you know at this place that you could introduce me to? And this has helped me so many times, because if that person knows other people at the social event, it's a great kind of easy transition where, if the conversation is running dry, all of a sudden you get introduced to a new person that you can go talk to. They get to go, find someone else, or they just join the conversation that they are now introducing you to, and the kind of the next step of the going and meeting people commences. And it was all because someone said, okay, sure, I'll go introduce you to this person. And then boom, you're in another conversation. So that's a great way to, if the conversation is running dry, you can kind of move on and go and talk to more people and, transition out of those awkward moments. So now the next one that I'm gonna talk about, as I just mentioned, that there's I've learned stuff from people about this, is to leverage mentors. I think this is really applicable to work. It's possible that, you have people at college that are upperclassmen or other that can help you with this kind of thing. But for me in the workplace is where this has really helped. Sometimes when you go to social events, you're either there for like a team event and you know people there already, or if you're, in college and you're friends with, older people that have a lot more of an expanded network, etc. You can kind of ask those mentors to help you meet people. And that same example of like, well, if you're in a conversation, you need to pivot and you can say, hey, who else do you know here? You could also ask your mentors or the people that you're friends with to introduce you to other people. And then that cold approach of just walking up to someone and introducing yourself is kind of removed, which can, create a lot of anxiety for some people, as it's not like the easiest thing to do in the world. So if you have friends that are at a function or a work event, or mentors at a work event, you can ask those people to introduce you to people and then kind of start the conversation that way. The other side of this is you can use them before going to these events or others, but at the same time, when you're kind of outside of the events, the people that you meet can become mentors to you and help you in a lot of ways. Maybe that's because you have a hard assignment and you need, some advice from someone that you met in a specialized field that can help you with that thing, or you run into a difficult problem at work and you need someone to talk to, and you said, oh, I really enjoyed talking to this person at this event, let me go follow up with them. You'll want to leverage mentors to help you, and I'm going to create more content on this channel about mentors and how impactful they have been in my life, as I've had a lot of really great people help me along the way on my career journey and whatnot. And the last thing that I'm going to say is to follow up and create mechanisms for doing so. Now, this is something I'm getting better at myself, as I'm not super connected to a lot of my extended family, and that's something that travel has shown me the importance of other cultures, and family is super important in a lot of cultures. Where myself, I'm very connected to my personal family, but my extended family, I talk to them every once in a while, maybe during the holidays and etc. And there's a lot of value to stay in contact with those people. And so the same thing, it can be applied to friends, and it can be applied to work settings when it comes to networking. Let's just say that you have met someone at a work event, you had a great conversation with them, and 6 months later you need their help on something, and you just cold reach out to them and you say, hey, I need this thing, can you help me? Well, I guarantee you that if you spent time talking to that person on a regular cadence up to that point, they would be much more likely to help you and much more enthusiastic about helping you with said thing. Same thing with, friends. If you want to create great friendships, then you should go and follow up with those people and check in on how they're doing and call them sometimes. If you don't have social media, or you do have social media, use it to reach out to people more often and check in on people. Make sure that you're creating genuine relationships with those folks, and that the relationships you're creating are not transactional. It results in a better experience for everyone. You create stronger relationships by doing so, and creating mechanisms around this. And when I say mechanisms, I mean like a forcing function for doing this. And so for me, that's like using a calendar. If it's at work, having a monthly call scheduled with a mentor, or a quarterly call with someone that I get coffee with. And that way I have more ways to interact with these people on a regular basis, and remember carrying the themes from all the other points, having genuine conversations with them, listening actively, etc. And with all of those points, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, networking is something that is commonly mistaken for like being a solely transactional thing. I don't think that's the case. And it is true that networking can result in a lot of great things, but I don't think that looking at it as a transactional tool is the right way to go about it. Now, with that said, networking can be super valuable, and I encourage you all to go out and try it. I want to challenge you, if you are, having problems with networking and, uncomfortable doing it, take some of the advice in this video and go do it. Leave a comment in the comment section below, or email me at will@jenkinswill.com with your story. I'd love to hear you, or if you want some help and want me to hop on a call with you and talk about it, I'd love to do so. So with that out of the way, that has been how to network in your 20s. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you.